All right. Welcome back to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. This is kind of a monumental episode, but we'll get into that. And as always, I'm your host, Adam Smith with Just the Tips Coaching. And with us, pretty much as always, although it would appear that it is ending a 5-year run today, is our co-host, one of our other coaches, all around superhuman, our marketing director, Mrs. Jen Waybor Hart. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Adam.
Pretty exciting stuff that you're, well, and maybe we should, kind of clue our audience in that you've had your own business for some time.
6 years.
That
Almost.
6 years, and our clients should be curious about that, and our listeners should be curious about that. It's called Jen's Way VA, and Jen's Way is, well, it's Jen's Way or the highway kind
Pretty
of
much.
thing. But Jen, for those of you that have paid any attention to what we've done here over the years at Just the Tips, and Jen will still be a part of that, and certainly what we've done at our mortgage company, that's pretty much all Jen. I mean, we gave her a crash course, even started making her travel with us to conferences like after 5 minutes of employment. And a lot of what you guys have seen over these last 5 years as our business has development has been Jen. So if you guys are still curious about all the great things that she does, you can check that out. I think it's jenswayva.com, right?
Jen's Way. I rebranded to just Jen's Way. Dropped the
Jen's
VA
Way.
because Jules is the best VA out there. So
Yeah,
stick with her.
we do have an incredible VA, and the
Yeah,
three of us are
Jules!
all like, "Hey, Jules!"
I figured that was a nice
Absolutely.
segue. I mean, it's kind of appropriate for Rob to be
Absolutely.
the last show that I'm on. Well, we'll see. But the last
Yeah.
show for now.
Yeah, it probably
You
won't be the
planned
last
it.
show. Maybe we'll book you as a guest.
That would be cool.
That would be kind of cool. You should put yourself on the calendar now
All right.
before you depart, because
All right,
that would
I'll do
be
that.
really fun stuff. And then, yes, Jen and I have a really cool guest for you guys today. A repeat guest, a former coaching client. And it may have even been Rob that turned us on to Jen. Is that accurate?
To Jules.
Yes.
Yeah, or to
Yep.
Jules, I mean. Because Rob, poor Rob, ran through the normal gamut that a lot of you have, trying to find a VA worth a shit. And that is hard. It's really, really hard. And Rob stumbled across Jules, who was working for a VA company at the time, and I can't remember the name of it, and who gives a shit, because she then went out on her own, and between what work Rob had been giving her and what work we gave her, and then a bunch of our past coaching clients that we have put onto her, now not only is she a really busy VA, but has her own VA company that we all keep really busy. So yeah, that's really, really cool shit. And Rob, it's been a minute. Sorry, let's do a proper introduction here. Please welcome back to the show, Robert Tait.
Hello.
And Rob, I think since the last time you were on the show, you've gotten married.
No,
think it was-
no, I've been married for.
You were a newlywed then.
Newlywed. I think he'd just gotten married last
Yeah.
year.
You have a baby.
I do have a baby.
You're somebody's father.
Yes,
That's
and
pretty-
it's not a
that's
Jedi.
wild. That is wild shit. And all of us are just like, really? Rob's a father? Who let that happen?
Yeah, well, apparently you don't actually have a license for that. You have to have a license to fly a plane or drive
Yeah.
a car
Yeah.
or sling real estate or mortgages.
Mortgages and real estate, right?
Yeah,
To
but
be a
you
dentist.
could render a
To
dentist,
cut hair.
Mm.
which I desperately need
Okay.
so bad. But yeah, to have a kid, apparently you just need some alcohol and some poor life choices. Like,
Okay. All right. So, Jen, there's some advice there.
I got a
All right.
5-year-old with the
Yep.
deal, so
Yeah.
I think I did it the right way. So,
I don't know. I'm still thinking there was alcohol involved.
I mean,
All right.
RJ would say yes.
I don't know. My kid's pretty cute.
Yeah?
Yeah,
All right.
super cute.
Jen's is too. Oh my God. But
Doesn't
she
she
is
know it?
so precocious. Yeah, she is.
That's the name
Everything
of
you
our
would
next company.
expect
So
a
precocious.
That's everything you would
Love it.
expect a 5-year-old to be. No question. She is way, way up there. So, Rob, we're going to assume and let our audience assume we're still doing EV.
Mhm.
Okay. So Rob is still with Engel and Volkers. Cool.
Mhm.
And where are you? This is a new backdrop for you. You've got a new office?
Yeah, we have a space in Cherry Creek now.
Okay.
We moved into it right at the end of like November last year, December.
For
And then,
those of
course,
you
had-
outside of our, normal area here, that's like Cherry Creek is to Denver what Beverly Hills is to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty similar. Actually, Beverly Hills is modeled Cherry Creek is modeled after Beverly Hills. So if you drive down certain roads in Beverly Hills, you'll actually get confused because you're like, "Hey, isn't Madison that way?"
That's
And then
right.
it's not,
This
'cause
is
you're in
this is
LA.
First in Madison, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. That's true with the shopping and the restaurants and so on and so forth. All right.
I tell
Yeah.
everyone from LA it's modeled after our Cherry Creek, but that's probably not accurate if
don't
you use the Google.
think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to claim one way or the other. We'll just let people decide for themselves. And you're still running a team.
Mhm.
What does that look like these days?
We have 5 agents.
Is anybody else picking up on the fact that Adam is such a fucking dick that he can't keep up with some of his oldest friends who are, relative newlyweds and new parents, and that's what we talk about instead of how your business is? Tell us about your business.
I know. So we have 5 agents.
Okay.
Dane, Selena, Lila, Prosper, and Isabel. And they're rock
We know a bunch
stars.
of
They're
those
doing
names.
awesome.
We know the majority of those names. We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
worked with a lot of them. Prosper.
Prosper's he'll be the top producer this year.
Love that kid. Good for him.
I know.
And he
know.
still won't work his own circle, I'll bet.
Not really.
Okay.
But he's doing better at it.
Okay. But I think it's important for everybody to understand, especially our audience, that there are a million ways to skin a cat, as it were. When we were working with your team and Prosper, and he was brand new to all of this at the time. Well, I guess Dane was and Celine was. You had a lot of new agents back then.
Mhm.
And look, they're still going, which is really fucking cool. But yeah, Prosper would prefer to be doing shit like calling expireds, calling FISBOs, absolute strangers, rather than running his circles. And it works for him.
Mhm. Most of his, probably 50% of his business this year is repeat or referral.
So we are shifting.
great.
We are getting there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
actually, what he's done over these years is create a new circle
Mhm.
from all of these strangers.
If you do, so like all those business models and stuff that cold call and, just Zillow hunt or whatever, if you do it right and you figure out how to still maintain some level of relationship with them and or continue to market or stay in front of them, you can accident into a sphere business.
You can accident into a sphere. I like that. You can stumble into it. Yes.
Well, yeah, you have to be good and personable, right? Like,
He is.
but yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everybody loves Prosper.
Yeah. He's a funny guy.
Mhm.
We
great.
always got a kick out of Prosper. I will forever miss those short form video modules where your entire team showed up and we made absolute
were so
asses of
fun.
ourselves on camera. It was
great.
fantastic.
So
Really good stuff. So it doesn't seem like, there are a few shifts, some new names, obviously a lot of old names. It doesn't seem like those changes have been very dramatic, and you're still kind of running in this mid-level, running a team, doing a lot of urban shit, I assume. Most of the business is in central Denver.
Yeah, I'm trying, since I moved to Castle Pines, I'm working on shifting my business down south.
Yeah,
we're
for
doing
those of
farming
you not in our
activities.
area, that's a subdivision that's like halfway between Denver and Colorado Springs. It is way south.
Yeah.
We do still consider it the Denver metro area. It is in one of the counties considered to be the 7 that make up the Denver metro area, but it's about as far south as you can go and still call yourself Denver.
Yeah. So we live there now. Like, it's where the BMW Open is being. I have tickets to it.
Yep,
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. So I want to move my central business more south, which is, so we're doing all the farming like activities. I'm giving out ice creams on Sundays at the park. We're doing
Wait,
mailers.
let me write that down. Which part?
Oh, we call it the big park.
Oh,
So
okay.
my neighborhood's in Timberline, and there's 2 parks in Timberline, so we give
You have
out
a
free
big
ice
park
cream.
and a little park.
And we have a big park and a little
Okay,
park.
so
Yeah.
for you ice cream fans out there, the big park
The big
in
park.
Timberline, in Castle
Yep.
Pines, Colorado,
Castle
is
Pines.
where we can get free ice cream. Got it.
Yeah, 11
Wait.
to 11 to 1 on Sundays.
Is it free? That's an
Yeah.
important piece. Okay, free ice cream. All right.
I mean, it's not free to me, but it's free to you.
I think it is appropriate to know that yesterday was National Ice Cream Day.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Also on a Sunday, very appropriate. I did have my Cold Stone yesterday. I thought that was appropriate. All right, so
awesome.
Rob, I think that this actually leads us into a really good subject because you're making a fairly monumental shift in your hyper geolocation marketing stuff. And
Mhm.
one of the things that we talk about with a lot of our clients, particularly real estate agents, is farming. And this is one piece of that puzzle. We're giving out ice cream on Sundays at the big park in our neighborhood. We're
Mhm.
probably putting the baby in the stroller and walking the baby over there with the cooler full of ice cream.
Yes.
Okay. This is classic farming type of shit. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of this where it's hyper local, where we're doing something that's for the greater good of the community because it's fucking ice cream. And there's no bad in ice cream ever, anywhere
No.
in the history of ice cream has there ever been anything bad. So definitely for the greater good. And this is classic farming type of stuff. How big a piece of the lead gen puzzle are you and your team putting into farming? How important do we rate it?
Well, for me, right, the whole team isn't farming the area because they don't live there, right?
Not your area, but they've got their own areas.
Yeah, so they don't all have established themselves in an area that they want to stay. So they're still doing what I call demographic farming,
Okay.
which is farming certain like Prosper's super into fly fishing. So he's farming
Yeah.
fly fisher people.
Run with
right?
your tribes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So in my opinion, you're always farming, right? You're either farming Zillow, you're farming your sphere demographics, or you're farming an area, right? You're farming something, right? And
Well,
so,
something that you're connected to.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Either you live there or you are a fly fisherman yourself,
right.
right? We don't see
So
vegans farming the Cattlemen's Association.
that would be dumb.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. We see plenty of dumb. Go ahead.
That's dumb. So I would say probably 60 to 70% of our efforts are some level of targeted farming of, whatever niche that agent is particularly really trying to work within. Like Dane's a big golfer, so he's hitting the golfers in Cherry Hills and stuff like that, pretty regularly. Everybody's, Isabel Spanish, and so she's hitting the Spanish community and helping provide resources to them because they're well taken advantage of. Everyone's farming something. We do what's called a 1-3-5. So like, here's your sales goal, that's your one, and then 3 ways that you're going to hit it. And we like to say that each way should be 50% of the way to the one. So that way you're doing 150% efforts. So that way, if the strategy is bad or you are lazy, most of the time you're lazy,
And you
you'll still
drop
hit the one goal
right.
by doing these 80%, right?
Okay.
And then you have 5 strategies to each one.
To each one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like this. This is starting to fall along the lines of some of the shit we had worked on together years ago. Actually, there's a really good piece of content in there. Jen, where are you for presentations on Mastermind? We should. We're probably booked up this year, but
You want to put Rob on stage?
no, never mind.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah,
Didn't go well last time.
we don't want to give Rob a microphone. That's just a mistake. We understand.
Can I have 2 turntables too?
Now that we may do, maybe we'll let you DJ a party one night.
Yeah.
Event, Dad. Wow, that was weird for everybody, wasn't it? And even Rob, somebody's calling him Dad.
The weirdest moment was when my father came into the hospital and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, check out your new grandson." And he's like, "Look at your new son, Dad." And when my dad called me Dad, that was weird.
I'll bet it was. But having met your dad and knowing what the two of you have done for literally decades, I'll bet he is fucking beaming.
He is.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, they obviously, we all know there's this rumor out there about how grandparenthood is so superior to parenthood, right? And all the things like, yeah, I play with them when I want, and I get to give them back, or I buy them what I want, I spoil them rotten, I feed them sugar and espressos, and then dump them back home, whatever the case may be. But I think the piece of that puzzle that we never really talk about is how cool it must be to see your children parent.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's part of it that people really lose sight of, is how cool it must be as a grandparent to watch your children parent. Because if they're good parents, it means you did a good job.
Or when they're struggling on things that you told them about, and you're like, totally.
Yeah. All right. So we've gotten way off track when it comes to lead gen and team structure and all the things we work on here at Just the Tips. But there's still this huge aura, I guess, for lack of way to describe it, a huge benefit, I think, I know you do too, in the real estate team structure. And I know we had talked about it either near the end of your coaching program with us or shortly thereafter. And we'd even gone and looked at some stats about how much more successful agents on a team were than agents that were not. Do we still think that's true?
Oh my God. It's going to get worse, not better.
Well, no, I mean, it's not worse. It's better.
And everything
else.
Oh,
here we go. All right, bring it, because we haven't had you on the show since the NAR settlement. We haven't had you on the show since the sale of RE Colorado, or the impending sale of RE Colorado. You must have a lot of shit you want to get off your chest.
Effed. I don't know who listens to podcasts. So yeah, like
we don't either, but apparently we're really big in Nigeria. Something
sweet. Actually, my VA for the insurance company is from Nigeria. Anyway, so the it's going to be harder to enter into this industry as a single agent, and teams are the only ones that generate enough revenue because of the splits to be able to provide higher end support, higher end coaching, higher end technology, etc. Right? It's already harder to be an agent now than it was a few years ago, and that trend is going to continue. It's going to keep getting harder to be an agent, which I'm excited about, right? And so entering this industry, trying to do well at a firm that just has a 3 weeks of classes, right? And then says, go forth, my child, and sell the real estate, or even no classes, right? Like there are good companies that try to train you, and there are companies that pretend.
I love it. Okay.
Like if you don't join the team, I think it's going to get even worse for you.
That's an interesting take. And do you think it's still most common that people coming out of real estate school, getting straight into whatever it is they're going to do in their real estate career, are joining teams? Is that more prevalent?
I think most of them don't.
Oh, wow.
I think most of them join the big flags.
Yeah, of course.
Right? The Keller,
Remax,
Coldwell. They join the big flags, or they get talked into a small brokerage. Like they have a buddy at this, mom and pop, and then mom and pop are like, sure, and we'll train you. But when they say we'll train you, they think what training is in their head, and they think what they got trained, which was here's your desk, here's your phone, call me with a question.
Here's a call list.
Here's a call list.
That's how I was trained in the. Well, I'm not going to say how long ago it was, but yeah, my first gig in the mortgage space was a desk, a computer, a phone, and an Excel spreadsheet of names and numbers, and a pat on the bottom. I did get a pat on the bottom.
Yeah. Like I don't see many agents that are $10 million producer plus where I'm like, where did you start? And they're like, oh, mom and pop blank real estate.
Okay. Fair enough.
Mom or pops are great for you don't care about all the national stuff, right? You already know what you're doing, and you're really good friends with Trevor, right? And you and Trevor just want to hang out and do real estate together. Great. Go join that. It's terrible for new agents.
I would think that would be more appropriate towards the end of your career, not the beginning.
I mean, you got to understand, most agents don't last in this career 10 plus years.
Fair enough. Yeah. We know 80% fail in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
85.
The end of your career is always nigh.
Okay. Yeah, I guess for most, the end of their career is 18 months from now. Got it. Okay. But for people, and you and I have had this conversation as well, because we were actually trying to figure out a percentage, which we knew was very, very low, one, maybe two, of agents that had actually seen a buyer's market, right? Because we haven't seen one in, well, it's getting close to 20 years, right? Right after the post Wall Street trashing the real estate system apocalypse in 07, 08, 07 really, which is coming up on 20 years ago, as crazy as that is. And we know that if 80% fail in the first years, 85% fail in the first 5 years, that there's this itty bitty little percentage of people that have ever seen a buyer's market. And obviously, as we get further and further from that, and I'm not sure we'll ever define it the same way again. I'm not sure a buyer's market will ever be defined the way that it was 20 years ago.
No, it's not possible.
Yeah, it's not possible. What we had defined as a balanced market back then, a 6-month inventory. You should expect it to take you to 6 months to find a house. You should expect it to take 6 months to sell your house. And I don't think we ever see that again. So,
Well, and it's based on the absorption rate too. Like we're not going to start building enough houses to get up to a balanced market anytime soon. So if we want to actually talk about the juxtaposition of a seller's market and a buyer's market, we have to redefine it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of surprised that we haven't, but it has to be coming. Although, and actually, this is probably good content since you happen to be on the show and you happen to be in a major metropolitan market, obviously, as the majority of real estate agents are going to be. In those 7 counties that make up the Denver metro area, we've nearly doubled the inventory from what it was at its low point, and it's higher than it's been in like 10 years. Oh yeah, no, the stats don't lie. We've breached 10,000 listings. I mean, don't get me wrong. That 6-month inventory for us would be about 35,000 listings. So we're a far, far cry from anything that we would define as balanced or a buyer's market. But we have not had 10,000 or north of 10,000 in 10 years, more than 10 years. So I've got to assume, and if there are people out there watching, listening, then by all means chime in, that that's true in the other major metropolitan markets. Seattle, Portland, Atlanta, Miami, and all parts in between. But I still don't think we're seeing the kind of movement that we had in the real estate market, even when the inventory was shorter. Rates are down, lower than they've been in a long, long time. Inventory's up, higher than it's been in a long, long time. And I, again, kind of an outsider's perspective, because, I've got my own little circles that I pay attention to when it comes to business and so on and so forth. But I don't see those wheels turning much faster than they have in recent years, despite lower rates and more inventory.
I mean, rates are going to have to come down pretty significantly to move things. I mean, so now you have I think the Fed is very pleased with everything going on. So they're not interested in rocking the boat a lot on interest rates. They like where job growth is sitting. It's slowly and steadily. Inflation is somewhat under control, right? And so it's not gonna. You start messing with housing again, right? Which was one of the 3 big pillars that caused the inflation in the first place was housing.
Sure. Yep.
Right? Then you throw the whole thing back into a whack. I think they want to see prices level, and they need to, right? Real estate as an investment can perform just as well as the S&P 500, but that's accounting for a renter paying off dividends, price appreciation, and a tax advantage, right? But when real estate literally beats the pants off the stock market, the whole way the economy is built is not going well, right?
Well, I think the whole way the economy is built is a paper tiger anyway. Even when it looks fierce, you could punch a hole right through it. That's probably been true since the Industrial Revolution. I think what we're currently seeing with the Fed is a number of things, and credit where credit's due, because there are obviously a lot of economic minds in real estate and mortgages that are far superior to mine. Please don't let the nomer of Adam Smith fool you. That's just a namesake. I'm not actually an economist. But the Fed, while I understand the Fed's policy, the Fed drives the car using only the rearview mirror. They don't look out the windows to see what's going on. They can't look out the windshield to see what's going to happen. We basically have to go off historic data. Now, granted, that wasn't that historic in the grand scheme of what's going on with the Fed, a 12-month history. But now the economy moves so quickly that 12 months is a very long time. There's a lot of change, or at least the potential for a lot of change. It does appear on top of that that we may very well have a change there as we go through an election cycle. We may have another Fed chair. And would the current chair want to depart that office, being known as the person who stopped inflation in its tracks? Absolutely. I think there's a mindset of a legacy to be left there. Yes, I think that inflation is curbed down to what would be normal, 2-3%. However, we falsely suppressed it for so many years, maybe even a couple of decades, that when we saw a 10% immediate jump in inflation, we all went a little haywire. Had it just been that 2 or 3% year over year gradually as it should be, things might make a lot more sense today than they have. So as far as that paper tiger is concerned, I think if we actually had a healthy economy, we're probably talking about where mortgage rates really should be. Maybe a touch high still, but I think if we actually had a healthy economy, we're right about where we should be.
Yeah, like 6% seems to be the
5.5 to
healthy-ish,
6. Yeah.
somewhere in there, right?
Yep.
It's not crazy. You know, you're not printing money then. Banks are still making decent money. People can still afford it.
Yep.
You know,
The real estate appreciation probably behaves in a normal manner. But yeah, I think this fall and the subsequent inauguration, I did promise we weren't going to get into politics, and we won't. I do think that the change, whatever change occurs in the Fed, will be very, very interesting next year.
yeah. But the overall capstone of it, I think there's no way that we're not getting around the fact that, and I think I've been talking about this for years, but I don't have a seat anywhere close to politics. I think owning a house, owning a property is coming more and more in alignment as a luxury good than it is a, life, liberty, and pursuit of property that's written in the Constitution, right? Like home ownership has become such a stretch, and it's not coming back. It's not. There's no economic indicators.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not in our lifetime.
Probably not. Yeah. Right. It's one of those where, which is going to have a ton of dominoes, right? Like most people, their net worth is wrapped up into their house. So then when you have a growing population that couldn't afford home ownership, where is their net worth, or did they not have one? And then you have this huge swath. So there's some big issues that if we don't actually sort this issue, that there's going to be a Piper in 30 years that sucks. Like we're not going to like that guy.
No, we are not. Although I think in the more immediate future, and you and I have had this conversation, and we have it with a lot of people all the time, although we rarely come across people that can get their head around it and either make sure that and this is true for all of you in real estate, mortgages, insurance, financial planning, whatever. And certainly for anybody, obviously our audience isn't really consumers, but anybody considering the purchase of a home, of real estate, we're getting to a point in the not too distant future here where, like Rob said, this is going to be reserved for people who can afford luxury items. How's your new Ferrari, Rob? Oh, wait, you don't have one? All right, I'm just curious. I'm just putting that out there. I don't have one either. I know a few people that have them, but that ain't me. Or people who already own a home and can leverage that into another home or a new home or whatever. But we are on the cusp of eliminating the first-time home buyer. It is going to be a thing of the past. And you and I talked about it specific to our market years ago, that at the pace we were at, and this was probably during the peak of the pandemic, really probably late 20 into 21, real estate values in the Denver metro were doubling every 4 to 5 years. And at the pace we were at, we were talking about how it isn't going to be far off where the average single family home in Denver is a $1.5 million. I think we had just breached 750,000, which is what you and I used as the benchmark to have the conversation. And while lending practices do try to keep pace, we don't. Conforming loans go up about 6% a year as far as loan limits are concerned. So, in that next 4 to 5 year period, and I think it might be a little longer now, when the average single family home in Denver is a mil five and the lending has not kept pace, the average single family home buyer is going to need $250,000 down and $250,000 in income to sustain the debt. And how many first time home buyers are going to meet that criteria? Like none, a fraction, less than 1%, kind of thing. We always, talk about the 1%ers, less than 1%ers. So yeah, we are going to have a problem that doesn't have a single point of focus as far as the solution is concerned. It's not about the builders building more. It's not about the boomers eventually giving up the real estate that they own, and they are part of the problem. And I'm not calling out boomer behavior. It's just that it's an enormous population and they're all living longer, staying in their homes longer. Jen, you're to blame here. Your generation is the only one bigger than the boomers now. You're all of home owning age and realize these little bits and pieces that if we don't buy a home, if we want to own a home, we don't buy a home now, we may never get to. These kinds of things. We're Americans, America. We'll have to have our own space. We don't do multi-generational living like Europe, Asia, Latin America, pretty much the entire rest of the world. So we've had all these big things over a couple of centuries of our nation's history now coming to a head where we may never be able to fix it. Of course, when we have big problems, one of the first things you got to do to get out of a hole is stop digging. And we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to do that.
Well, I think there's a number of solutions that are percolating up. Like I'm seeing new build developments with generational models, right?
Yeah,
That I've ever
there are
seen,
some,
right?
but not enormous ones. And so there's a single point of focus that is nowhere near enough to solve the problem. Go on.
Yeah. And you talked about the boomers, right? I think it's called the silver tsunami, which I absolutely love that name. Of the wealth transfer from the boomers down, right? They're starting that wealth transfer now. And a lot of the way they're doing it is down payment assistance, right? Through their family. But when you talk about the silver tsunami, you're still talking about middle class on up, right? Arguably not even half the country. So there's still these other guys, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think my parents, although we don't need any of it, right? They will have some decent wealth to transfer if and when. But they don't need to help us get started or anything like that. But again, we're not the norm, right? We're not the average. We're thankfully above that. Like it's gonna be an interesting and I'm describing all this because it's all opportunities too, right? Like people are really bearish on investing in real estate right now. Like multifamilies are down. Like, everybody's like, oh, the interest rates and stuff of those are stupid. Nobody should do multifamilies. And I'm like, if people can't buy homes, they have to live somewhere, you twats.
Yeah.
Buy investment properties.
It's funny because what you're describing, and Jen, I know we're already over time. We'll eventually. At some point, I don't know, maybe in 21, I think in 21 or 22, we had a major shift in LLPA, the loan level price adjustments all across the board that made it far more expensive to borrow the money for second homes and investment properties. And it did not matter. The real estate still going up 10, 15, 20% a year was still absolutely excessive in comparison to, okay, now the interest rate to buy a multifamily property went from 4 to 8. I'll still take that return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you're breaking even now, eventually those rates will come down. You'll refi, right? And you know that because of every economic factor that you can see, there's going to be a massive pool of renters.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I'm not sure that some of the younger generations today, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, will ever be given the opportunities that boomers and Gen X and millennials were for homeownership. I just think we're getting to a point where it's going to be out of reach.
Yeah, unless you get real smart. Like I have a 23-year-old client that is an engineer, and he comes from a family where they're smart financially, and he bought his first little home. It's like 600 square feet, right? It's
Right.
nothing, but
Right.
it gets him started, right?
Yeah.
If, like, go to where you like. Is it as sexy as where he wants to live? No,
No. Is it as nice? No. But is it going to have
no.
$100,000 in equity in 36 months that he can leverage and put down on a place that is sexier, that is nicer? Absolutely. And we closed one recently for a 19-year-old, and she got it. She understood it.
That's
She
dope.
absolutely knew exactly what this was. Find a place that you can tolerate for a few years, then leverage that into your next place and into your next place. And if I hear any of you use the term forever home again, I'm absolutely going to slit your throats, because that's either a pine box or an urn. Those are the only actual forever homes.
Our lifestyles change too much to ever have a forever home.
I know. Well, we're a mobile society. All right, Jen, I know we're over, and Rob and I could go on with this again, but before you completely depart, put Rob on the books for another
I can
episode
do that.
whenever we have that. And since we know you're going to be kind of kicking around behind the wings of Just the Tips probably in perpetuity, you've probably got some things on the horizon that you want to talk about, like Mile High Mastermind that we had briefly mentioned when Rob first came on.
Yeah, Mile High Mastermind will be the last weekend of September, as it almost always is. It's a 2-day conference, mostly realtors and LOs. We have a couple other salespeople come time and time again, but those tickets will go on sale, so be on the lookout from the JTT team for all of that. But also, if you want to find past episodes of the show, the weekly little tip, copies of Adam's books, all the things JTT, you can head over to justthetipscoaching.com, and it will give you all of that and more.
And more. How exciting. Hey, Rob, thanks, man. I know carving out this kind of time on a Monday morning is not easy, but we never see you anymore. We used to get you for an hour every week, and we could have conversations like this. So now apparently we're just going to abuse the podcast and do that and talk about whatever the hell we want in real estate.
I'm going to bring the kid on the next one.
Actually, that would really be cool. Although
Perfect.
I don't know how far out Jen is booked, but he's not going to be a baby.
Yeah, it'll be next summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, yeah, because we're huge in Nigeria, or it's actually not the number 2 country that we get downloads, but I can't remember what it was, because it was
really
weird.
random.
Like the Virgin
Latvia?
Islands or something. Yeah, we have a huge listenership in another country outside of the States that was like 9% of our total audience. We can't figure out why, but neither here nor there. So, Rob, thank you again. I'm so
Cheers,
glad
guys.
you were able to do it. And yeah, for the rest of you, we're going to see some transition here as Jen kind of moves on to doing her own gig full time, which we love. God, if we could do nothing but build successful people everywhere in every corner and help them along that path, then shine on us, crazy diamonds. But we are going to have some transition stuff, so bear with us, because Adam's not great at running the show, and we are looking hard for Jen's replacement. If you are a listener and you know of somebody who's got some badass marketing skills, social media, all these kinds of things, podcasting, et cetera, we're currently looking for new Jen.
New Jen.
Yeah, I guess you just aged out of the program, kiddo.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. And outside of that, if you want to check us out live here on How I Met Your Mortgage, you can do that at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, 12:30 Eastern on Mondays on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And a mere 48 hours later, you can catch the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. And we will catch you guys next week. Peace out.